Hello and welcome to VistaTalks, interesting discussions with interesting people from all around the world. I'm your host for today, Simon Hodgkins. It's a real pleasure for me to be joined by an ex-colleague and also somebody who's making great strides in the world of AI and healthcare. It's Jill Goldsberry. Jill is the go-to-market AI Senior Solutions Consultant at Centaur Labs, also known as Centaur.ai. Jill, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you asked me to speak with you today, and I'm pleased to be here. Thank you, Simon. And nice to see you again as well.
It's great to see you, Jill, and great to hear about all the wonderful things you're doing over at Centaur.ai and Centaur Labs. Let's get into it, because I want to talk to you about this, because it's a fascinating subject. Now, at Centaur.ai, you offer scalable, compliant, and I suppose cost-effective, if I can sneak that in there, ways to generate this sort of quality labeled data for healthcare AI. Okay, and AI is a huge topic. Healthcare has gone through huge changes, as we know at the moment. Could you tell us a little bit more about your role, Jill, that you're doing in at Centaur Labs, Centaur.ai? What's actually involved in what you do, Jill?
Sure. So my role as the go-to-market senior solutions consultant for AI is it involves directly connecting healthcare and life science organizations, pretty much anything in the healthcare sector, science sector, with the data resources they need to develop reliable AI. And so the focus that I have and my company has is on one thing: producing expertly labeled data at scale for complex medical and scientific domains. That can include anything from annotating medical images, for diagnostic models, to labeling biosignals, surgical videos, any clinical text, anything like that. So we partner with clients at different stages of development. So what you're going to see is that sometimes it's to improve a deployed model's performance. Other times it's going to, that's going to happen even before the first prototype has gone out. And then other times it's basically making sure that we deliver labeled data sets that are high quality, regulatory ready. And again, that's another key thing there, and produced on timelines that match their go-to-market goals.
It sounds like a heck of a lot, Jill. Sounds exciting too, right? You're right in the cut and thrust of it. So like you're shaping those sort of go-to-market strategies, right? So what do you say to maybe your customers, your clients, when they're asking you, well, how does Centaur fit into this? How does it work in these? Because these can be quite complex, mature workflows, right, Jill?
Right. They really can. And I think the other thing to think of is, some workflow, all the workflows are different. Some are more mature than others. So the thing that I think we like to say, in general, whether it's mature workflows or not, the key is integration without disruption. And so we don't ask teams to change any of their core processes. Instead, we slot into their existing pipelines, whether that's model training, validation, or post-market surveillance, and provide that data that meets their exact specifications. So because our platform is flexible, we can adapt to the client's labeling schema, data formats, and any compliance requirements that they might have as well. And that allows us to enhance what they're already doing rather than forcing a new system on them. And that's one of the beauties of our program.
That makes a lot of sense. And I suppose many companies at the moment, they risk building these distorted models because they've got maybe this poor training data. I mean, in your experience, Jill, is there any sort of common misconceptions that organizations have when it comes to the world of data annotation, and how does Centaur.ai and Centaur Labs help with these, I suppose, avoid these pitfalls, right?
Yeah. So one huge and large common misconception is that annotation is simple. It's a simple mechanical task, so to speak. It's often treated as something that anyone can do cheaply, do while they have maybe their full-time job, do it after hours, after work, whatever. In reality, especially in healthcare, labeling requires domain expertise, and quality controls must be in place that match the complexity of the task, because not all tasks are created equal. In practice, in real life, data sets often need iteration, and as models learn, there's going to be edge cases that emerge. And when that happens, Centaur addresses both issues by using, we use trained annotators, again, with domain expertise, applying multiple quality workflows and quality checks during that entire process. So, and maintain that workflow and maintaining that low workflow, I will say, will allow for iterative improvement as you go along.
Yeah, and that's really important, isn't it? And I know you work with a lot of experts around the world, particularly in this area. And Centaur, you have like a platform, like a mobile platform, I think, that's got some sort of gamification in it, hasn't it? So, and you're working with these people to deliver this, I suppose, what we now know as multimodal data labeling. You're doing it at scale. Can you take us through a little bit about how it actually works and why is it especially powerful for healthcare AI?
Sure. So just so our platform, before I quickly get into, we're kind of known as the scale AI, but for healthcare scientific domains. And our platform engages thousands upon thousands, something like 40,000 or more, to be exact. Many of whom are clinicians, researchers, have advanced medical training, in med school, nurses, et cetera. And through this mobile interface, presents labeling tasks in a way that's intuitive and repeatable. And the gamification elements are what keep the engagement high. And we have consensus algorithms that aggregate multiple expert judgments into a single high confidence label. And I think the other thing here that's highly unique to it is because it's mobile, we can reach contributors or these folks anywhere that they are, right, in their day at any time, which means faster turnaround without sacrificing quality. So you put the kids to bed and you have some time on your hands. Not that you have a lot, but you might have some time on your hands. You would be able to do this then. You're on your way home on the subway or, on a flight, and you'd be able to do this at your own time. So because it's mobile again, and especially for healthcare AI, where accuracy matters as much as scale does, this combination that we have on this platform is really, really effective.
Yeah, and it's a lot of people that you have in those sort of expert backgrounds and qualifications that
Right.
can work on this. And it's great that it's mobile, that it's got some kind of gamification built into it, right? So thanks for
Right.
sharing that, Jill.
Yeah.
And
And
I
everybody
know that,
wants to win, right? Be the
yeah,
best.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Look, you've worked on a lot of real use cases with things like snore detection. I know for sure.
One of my
Um,
favorites, let me
and
tell you.
is it 8 Sleep and generating multimodal, let me get this right, bilingual
Yeah.
radiology data sets with people like Microsoft Research? So
Mhm.
what are the sort of business or the clinical outcomes from these kind of projects, Jill?
Sure. So with 8 Sleep, and that's the snoring example you gave, accurate snore detection models, and again, multimodal, contributed to features that improve sleep tracking and potentially help identify sleep-related breathing disorders. And I know that affects a lot of people. So that was actually one of the use cases that came out of this. And you can go online, which is really cool too, and look up 8 Sleep, and you can see this, right online, all the detections and features that have been built into this by doing this type of research. Now, for Microsoft Research, um, producing bilingual radiology data sets help train models that work across different languages. So supporting more inclusive access to AI-driven diagnostic tools. And in both cases, the goal is the same: deliver data sets that enable models to perform reliably, and here's the key word, in real world conditions to simulate that. And again, multimodal, having the AI evaluated on that really kind of brings home these use cases, which is great to see.
Yeah, and the data sets, the all-inclusive access to AI-driven diagnostic tools, I think is critical. And anybody working in the healthcare space, particularly where AI is concerned, often talks about the data sets, maybe the lack of data in some areas, maybe it isn't as broad as it needs to be. And it's great to see that this is happening, Jill. So thanks for sharing those examples.
Sure.
And of course, that key one with Microsoft Research, really good. And look, whether it's waveform, audio, image, video, or just text annotation, they all feature in what Centaur does, right, in the platform.
Right.
So are there any sort of more challenging, or what are the most challenging data types or domains that you've tackled? Like, I'm thinking about things like ECGs or lung sounds or surgical video. There's a lot in there. And how does the team at Centaur make sure that they're consistent, they're accurate, they can scale? Like, because there's a lot of different areas. When you start to just have a little look at it, it's not just straightforward when you're talking about this stuff.
No, and you're right, Simon. I mean, surgical video is one of the more challenging domains because it combines visual complexity with procedural variation. So ECGs and lung sounds can also be difficult because they require both signal interpretation skills and an understanding of the clinical context, right? You have to understand both. For these types of data, we use highly specialized annotators. There's rigorous training that's involved and multiple reviewers per data point. So we don't rely on just a couple, right? Anybody can have a bad day, no matter how smart or how great you are. So again, we rely on multiple reviewers. We do automated checks combined with statistical quality controls that we have built in to help us maintain consistency, even as we scale up.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And as you're saying, it's people looking at all different types of expertise to be able to bring that together. And let's talk, if we can, Jill, about trust and compliance, because in healthcare, these are sort of the non-negotiables, right? So how do you and the team there ensure things like data integrity, regulatory readiness, obviously, for these sort of more sensitive use cases, especially when things like annotation, it may feed into FDA submissions, right? Or any sort of
Exactly.
post-market monitoring that needs to be done here. So it has to be right.
And you're exactly correct on that. I mean, we treat regulatory readiness as a requirement from the start, not an afterthought. That means secure data. That means secure data handling, strict contributor vetting, documented quality processes, and traceable audit trails for every annotation. So our workflows are designed so that labeled data sets meet the evidentiary standards needed for FDA submissions, CE marking, or other regulatory frameworks that might be involved here. And this level of rigor is what allows us to use our data confidently in both pre-market and post-market contexts. And I will also add here quickly that not everything is going to be going through, right, is, the FDA process. There are what you call training, and then there's for submission and evaluation for that. But it's always a good idea to plan correctly from the start, because there's times when I've heard this from some of our clients where, oh, it's not going to be for this. And then all of a sudden you realize, why didn't we just kind of do it the right way from the beginning? And so, so that's what I would have to say.
And I think what you started off saying there originally was that you sort of treat that regulatory readiness as sort of the de facto. That's how we're just going to approach this.
Exactly.
I really like that. That's great. Even if some of the projects are not going anywhere near that area,
Yeah.
like FDA submissions, etc. I think it's really good, and it holds the quality standard high, right? Which is important.
Exactly.
Now, Jill,
Exactly.
before we've talked about such a lot already, but before we do run out of time on this episode, as you look ahead with Centaur, with the teams, are you seeing any trends in emerging, maybe for data annotation in particular, or any sort of human expertise and AI collaboration for healthcare settings in particular? And how are you preparing for that? How are you thinking about supporting the next generation, the next wave of AI use cases for both clinical and scientific domains? Because it seems to change rapidly.
Everything seems to be changing rapidly today. Yeah. So we're seeing a shift from static one-time data sets, right? To dynamic, continuously updated ones that are evolving alongside the ML models. And so that's one trend. We're also seeing more specialized human AI collaboration. And where we're seeing that is where annotators are working directly alongside AI outputs. And what they're doing there is refining edge cases and improving model explainability. So we're preparing for these shifts by building infrastructure that supports this ongoing data pipelines. And again, everything changing from being more static to dynamic. And what this does, it allows expert review to happen closer to the point of model decision making, instead of waiting where you would label them, then come back and say, oh, are there any edge cases? And we're just like life, everything seems to be getting faster.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Well, Jill, it's been fascinating to learn a little bit more about the world that you're involved in. Continued success. Unfortunately, it brings us to the end of the show today. I want to thank everybody who's watching or listening to our episode around the world, wherever they are. I'm going to encourage them to join me on the next episode of VistaTalks again, where once again, I will be discussing interesting topics like these with interesting people just like Jill from all around the world. But Jill, it's great to catch up with you today. Thanks for sharing some insights and a little look into the world of what you're involved in. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you so much, Simon. And again, it's great seeing you and spending time today.